Whenever we get to the Republic, everybody says, why now? Well, just as there's never a right time to tackle climate change, there will always be those who say the same as they do about climate change when it comes to the Republic. Now is not, they say, the right time to talk about an Australian head of state. Well, I think it's always a time to talk about the merits of having an Australian head of state. It's a very important part of our national identity, and it's a very important constitutional change that we need to keep talking about. And of course, the road to an Australian Republic is a long and winding road, and it's a journey on which we must continue to embark. I've certainly always had the view that we have to continue this discussion. It is overdue, it's been delayed for too long, and we do need to put some urgency into a respectful national conversation. It's a matter of principle, it's a matter of democracy, and of course it's a matter of national independence. And of course it always comes down to a pretty clear and simple proposition. How can it be that in a modern democracy that one of our citizens, or any one of our citizens, can't aspire to be our head of state? And how can it be that the sole qualification to be the head of state is inherited privilege? It is simply astounding to think that we are still stuck in that discussion. Now, I'm a pretty passionate Labor supporter. Malcolm is passionate about his side of politics, but the thing that draws us together is our passion to ensure that this very day, as our kids are going to school, that every single one of them could aspire to be our head of state. And that is clearly not the case now. Many will say, and I encountered this on the radio this morning, that the system isn't broken, so why are we trying to fix it? Well, I think if anyone was watching the ABC last night and the series on Whitlam, I think we saw a pretty good case argued there to fix the system. I'm not going to go into all of the issues associated with that, but there clearly was a very good example of why the system needs to be fixed, why the powers of the head of state needs to be clarified. But it's something much more than that narrow constitutional discussion, important as it is. Because for Australia, here, in the Asian century, how can it be that we don't have an Australian head of state and someone is our head of state who is resident on the other side of the world? I would suggest to you today that it is a matter of national importance, both economic and social, that if we are going to maximise the opportunities which will flow to our country in the Asian century, then it's imperative that we have an Australian head of state. The very idea, as I move around the region in particular, in the 10 meetings of the G20 and go to regional meetings with our nearest neighbours, that we could have a head of state who resides on the other side of the world in a castle, having nothing to do on a daily basis with our nation, is enough to justify this discussion. So how can we be an independent nation in the Asian century and maximise the opportunities which will flow to us when we don't have a head of state resident in this country? So now is the right time to recommence this discussion, because when you think about it, Australia has never been in a better position on the global stage. The world's 12th largest economy, 51 in population, 12th largest economy. I could think of nothing which would secure our future and enhance our standing in the region than to take this vital decision, this vital constitutional change. And of course, when we think about republicanism, it's more than the constitutional arrangements, it's the nature of the society that we aspire to. And Australia has done so well in recent years. And if you look, for example, at the OECD survey of life across a whole range of countries that was published last week, Australia is the best place to live, and we've been that way in the OECD survey for 3 years in a row. And it certainly defies logic that next year we can host the G20 And as we sit here hosting the G20 in this country, that we have a head of state resident in another country. But republicanism is not just about that, it's also about shared rights and opportunities. We are one of the more successful societies as well as economies in the global community. And by all of the broad measures of republicanism, whether it's shared prosperity, equal opportunity, equality of sacrifice, civic participation, respect for our environment, we are a republic in all but name. Let's make the final step forward and become a republic so we can demonstrate to the world what a vibrant, independent, successful, fair nation we are. So that's why I think this book is so important. It goes through many of these arguments in different ways, but it kickstarts the debate. As I said before, we've had a decade of inertia. I do think the time has come, and I believe sooner rather than later, we have to begin the journey towards a plebiscite, which of course is the policy of the Republican movement, or a series of plebiscites to face up to this critical decision. So I certainly hope that the publication of this book takes us one step further down that road. Thanks for coming this morning.
Deputy Prime Minister, thank you.